Hey, everybody.
Hey,
I
hey,
just have to say, Ash, I have one of the best intros in the entire world.
that is an awesome intro. I dig it. I dig it.
One of
That's cool.
one of my best friends did it. He's amazing. Sean, Third Railify. If you ever
Okay.
need an intro, he's your guy.
Hey, I'm
So good. Like he was like, "What are you into?" And I was like, "Conspiracy, fun." And I really like the movie Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Random,
hey,
right? And he was just
yeah,
like,
right.
"Boom." I was like, "Holy shit." I was like, "That was great." Um Right, Punky? Pump. I can speak tonight. I promise you guys. That was fire. It's my favorite thing. So how's everybody doing tonight? I feel like this weekend like dragged but flew by in a weird sense. Um, but here we are Sunday night. And you guys know what to do here. I see you guys have all kind of entered in beforehand. You already smashed that like button a bunch of times, but I know we can do better. So go ahead, like, subscribe, follow, share, and they now have a little button now that you can repost. Go ahead and repost it. So as your friends are looking for something to watch, they'll be like, what are they watching? Then you can click on it. So let's do
There
that.
you go.
So tonight I have a really fun, interesting show. So I came across your chat one day.
Thank you.
I
Yeah.
think somebody else reposted it, maybe Cass or somebody. So that repost feature really does work. Um, and I was like, oh, let me see what they're up to. And I jumped in and your chat's just as amazing as my chat. They were welcoming. Everyone was like,
Yeah.
hey, how you doing? It was fun. And I think the second show that I was in there, I was like, this guy is giving off a great vibe. I think I should have him on my show. And Cass was like, do it. Do it. He's great. So I was like, here we go.
Thank you,
So we are
Cass, by
here.
the way.
So Cass is Cass is amazing. Hey, welcome in,
Yeah.
Colty86. Nice to
Yeah.
see you. Jack's in there.
Okay.
Jay. Who else we got?
Pooh Monkey.
Punky, me, Pooh Monkey. Thank you.
Yeah.
Leah, Krabix, Joyce. Obviously, you, Ash.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody on YouTube. If there's anybody over there for some reason, I don't do as well over there, which is weird. But it's fine.
It is what it
So
is.
why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, boys and girls?
Yes, my name is Ash. I do Wondercast on Rumble. I'm only on Rumble. I don't do YouTube because I just don't like to deal with all of that censorship over there. I honestly don't. I This is the only place that feels like home, and this is where you can find me. But I I just kind of got into this because of a long life of craziness. Truthfully and honestly, this life has been crazy for me, and I've been trying to make sense out of it all for years and years and years, and it kind of just culminated into Wondercast. And honestly, it was boredom too. Some of it was boredom because I had friends that were kind of looking for something to do on Saturday night, and I was kind of toying around with the idea of doing Wondercast at some point, and because I kind of didn't have an idea for it at the time, but I was just kind of like, I kind of want to do a live stream. I was like, but I just didn't know what. And I saw others that was doing it, and it kind of gave me inspiration to do it, like people like Dark Jason, K Star. So I just got kind of gravitated towards it, and then eventually just became what it is today.
Mm-hmm.
But
That's so
yeah,
awesome.
so
Is
as
there
far as
anything?
hmm? Sorry, was that?
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask
No, no, no.
what were you going to say?
I was going to tell you. Oh,
Oh, okay.
I totally lost my train of thought. So that's where we are. So as you can tell, my show is we have fun here. Sometimes I am a scatterbrain, so there's that.
Yeah, me too. I'm ADD. I'm ADD to the
Yeah,
max.
Rumble is definitely indeed a home to a lot of us. Oh, yeah. So we'll get along just great and until we both go,
Yeah.
what did we just say? And then we'll have to figure it
It's gonna
out. You know
happen.
what
I
I
know
mean?
it's
We'll
gonna
just
happen. I know
backtrack. It's fine.
I know it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So
So
do you just want me to just start getting into this,
that's fine.
or
Every my motto is everything is yeah. Let's jump right in. Feet first, deep end. Let's roll.
Okay.
So
You want to ask a
let's see.
question, or you want me to
Do
start
you
this
have a
off?
few questions? Yeah, I'm going to start off with the first question. So like I said, me and Ash, we kind of connected on like a different kind of quick hit in the chats, a little email
Yeah.
background and stuff like this. So you mentioned to me in your email that your childhood was filled with weirdness.
Yeah.
So what's one of the earliest strange experiences that you remember, and why would you classify it as weird?
Well, uh, honestly, my whole childhood has just been just not similar to other people's. I didn't have a whole lot of friends, honestly, and the children. I just didn't communicate well with children. I communicated more so with adults, and I was always more on a wavelength with them. And even whenever I was a child, a lot of people would say to me, or say to my parents, I should say, that Ash is just like a little adult. He you can talk to him, and he knows exactly what you're saying. He knows exactly what the meanings are behind things, and all of that. He just knows, and it just kind of progressed from there. And I had a lot of dreams when I was a kid, as weird as this sounds, and how was I supposed to know what this was? But I would have dreams where these, as best as I can as I can coin it, reptilian humanoid beings would come to me, various ones, into my dreams, and they would kill me in various ways. And this was something that
Wow,
would
that's got to be
reoccur and
terrifying as a
happen.
child.
Yeah, yeah, and it happened to me regularly. Like it was a reoccurring dream, variously happening, but it was a reoccurring dream. And this,
Hmm.
for a child, they don't. I'm sorry, I never looked into any of this stuff when I was a kid. Never. Yeah, when I was that little, no, my parents would have like said, "No, you're not watching any of this stuff." That's just not stuff that we did. And for me to have these dreams, it didn't make sense. And then I
Yeah.
started experiencing weird stuff like ghosts, and I would see them regularly. Like it was like a regular occurrence for me to see ghosts. And I would experience them. I'd tell people I'd see these things, and then they were like, "Oh, you don't. You're just imagining it. Oh, it's just something else. It's pareidolia or whatever." And then it gradually became other things, and it became like best coin term I can use would be aliens and things like that. Like I would start to see beings like reptilians, directly reptilians. I would see reptilians, and then I would see grays, and I've only seen one insectoid in my whole life, and that was in a picture that I took,
And what's
and
that?
the picture mysteriously disappeared. Hmm?
Hmm. I said, what is
So
that?
what is what?
You said the gray, the spect. You said another word
Oh,
after that. That
oh,
my
it was
headphones cut out.
okay, I'm sorry. It was there was grays and insectoids. I only saw one insectoid
Insectoids.
though. Yeah, I've only seen one
And
insectoid my
what's an
whole life.
insectoid?
Best way and I can explain it is it's a being that looks similar to a praying mantis, but a little bit more exaggerated and way bigger,
Okay.
like human sized, if not bigger. This one was in a picture. I heard this story goes with this one is this happened way later. This happened when I was in an adulthood. Uh, I heard a noise in my house. This was before I blessed my house and got rid of these things. But I heard a noise, and I knew things that I know at that point that I needed to probably grab up a camera or something and just start taking pictures. So I go grab up my camera. I start taking pictures on my phone, and one of the pictures that I took in that room showed a being coming out of the wall about halfway out of the wall, about torso so into it, and it was a what I would refer to, as best I can coin it, as an insectoid. I mean, it looked like an insect being. And what's funny is I had that picture, and I had it ready. I was like, I'm gonna show my wife whenever she gets home. I'm gonna show my wife. And then by the time she got home, it was gone. So I don't have that picture to have
That's
proof
so
of that.
weird.
Yeah. But yeah, I would constantly see these things, and I've had other people see things around me. I don't know if she's in the chat yet, but Purple, she saw something with me one time. We were out in a cave. Well, it was around Eminence, Missouri. There's a spring called Alley Spring, and around this spring there's these little caves. It's about 3.5, 4 foot tall, and they're perfectly formed in a like perfect cave dome shape, which is strange. And the rest of our group kind of moved on around, and she kind of went in, and I was like, no, I'm not playing around with this, because I knew the things that
Yeah,
I
she
knew at
can't go
that
by
point.
herself.
Yeah, she cannot go by herself into this place. So she's going in there, and then all of a sudden I hear her go, oh, 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 oh. She starts backing up, and she's like, Ash, I saw something. I saw something. And she goes, I think I got it. I think I got its picture. Again, similar scenario. She showed me the picture. Sure enough, dead as can be, right in that picture, there was a gray alien. And she said, that's a gray alien. I go, yeah, it is. And I go, you need to send that to at least 5 or 6 other people right now. If you don't, it's going to disappear. And then she said, oh, okay. And she didn't. She showed a few people that was in our group around the side, and they saw it too. My
Yeah.
daughter, she saw it, and she said, yeah, that's a gray alien, because she's seen them too. My daughter has seen them too. And well, anyway, so by the time we got back to where we were going to, the picture was gone, or at least the image of the creature that was in it was gone. And I don't know how to explain that. And she can verify that. Darth can verify that. There's a few others that can verify that actually encountered the actual picture. And Darth says the picture sometimes. Now this is something that he said to me, and I think Purple said it to me too, that sometimes the image in the picture will show up again, but other times it won't.
So it's almost like they're kind of letting you have a sneak peek only of what they want you to see.
Right.
Like,
right.
okay, I think this person wasn't ready to see this picture, but they may be ready to see this and maybe question things a little more and dig a little deeper. So almost like a scratch at the surface of what they think that you can handle and process at one time, as opposed to being, yep, I am out, I am done, leave me alone. Because I feel like once you tell them to leave you alone, you have lost your chance.
Right. And this is how it got. I mean, this is how these things happen. And they manipulate every scenario, and then they can allow you to see tidbits of certain things when they allow you to and when they want you to. This is the stuff I deal with on a regular basis. But anyway, going back to when I was younger, just trying to fit in when I was a kid was hard. I mean, it was hard because for one, I had allergies. I had really bad allergies, like really bad allergies. Like I would go into anaphylactic shock. So again, for those of you out there who go, oh, you know, those soy boys out there, I was allergic to soy. So I was not that soy boy, but anyway, I was allergic to soy. So, but that was like a big thing for me. Like growing up, I would go into anaphylactic shock from soy and beans and bananas and peanuts. Like this world was not meant for me. And it's been really hard living here. But at the same time, I've always had this weird feeling on the inside of myself that there was something more that I had to offer, but I didn't know what. And it just gradually became weirder and weirder until my eyes started to open up. And the I started to, when I was in my teenage years, it started to become manifesting into like depression. And I was really, really depressed because I was seeing things and I was dealing with things and dealing with other humans and dealing with the situation of other people and not really understanding how to deal with human, so to speak, being a human, but very well. And it was hard. And the depression was really setting in on me, like really hard on me. And it became very hard to deal with everyday life. So for a very long period, whenever I was a teenager, it was just like I was in a deep, dark hole. I mean, a really,
Mhm.
really deep, dark hole. And it took a lot of digging to get out. But
So
as
how
far
did
as
that so how did that experience of those dreams as a child and the way you felt when you were a teenager, how like how did that experience shape the way you viewed the world and yourself in that time?
at the time, I took it out on myself. Whenever I was a kid, as I said, I mean, I went into deep, dark depression. I mean, it was one of those experiences where it was hard for me to deal with just life because because everything was so strange. Everything I was experiencing was just not normal for me, and I honestly felt like this vibration of this planet is just not right, and I felt like that I was by myself and that nobody really could understand where I was coming from anything, and I was alone, truly alone. And that's kind of how I took it at the time. But now it's different. I see it differently now. And I see it way differently now. I see it more as it was kind of like setting me through the fire so that way that I could come out the other side and be, hardened steel, if you will. And by
Mhm.
all of that catalyst, all of that stuff that was going on to me in all my earlier life, it just hardened me to the point where I could do what I do now and understand what I understand now and look into the things that I'm looking into and finding these things out, verifying things, cross-referencing things, using different methods to cross-reference things. And that's kind of how it kind of, as weird as it sounds, I kind of like the fact that I went through all this shit that I went through because it
Mhm.
it allowed me to be able to be the person that I am today.
Okay. So
But
so that
I would
kind
even
of
have
you
I
kind of
would
went
even
into
have
my
ESP when I was a kid. Like I still have it. I
really?
There'll be time yeah, there'll be times where I can't control it. I wish I could. But it would be like I'll just randomly think something's gonna happen. And then like here's an example. Uh I was with my son one day. My son can verify this. Uh but he I was with my son one day and we were driving along and we were getting ready to go across uh into this one town and it had a railroad crossing across it. And then I said to my son, I just had a feeling. I just knew. I said to my son, I wonder if we're going to beat that train that's coming up over there. And then he said, what train? And I go, you'll see. And then we went right over there to it. And sure enough, there was a train and we didn't beat it. We didn't beat the train, but I knew that it was coming. I had a feeling. I just knew. And like I sometimes I will sense when things are getting, as weird as it sounds, I will sense when things are getting ready to drop or like fall, and then I'll get a sense that it's going to happen, and then usually I can react in time to grab it before it falls, and it makes me look like I have like super like human speed, but I really don't. It's just me knowing a little bit ahead of time that it's going to fall, and I just catch it.
So I wonder if that accounts to kind of like the last show I did about how our clothing all has frequency and vibrations and how
It
they
does.
play off. I'm wondering if your body senses that vibration that is about to happen and your body's reacting because we know that everything we see is delayed.
Right.
You
Right.
know what I mean? It's just the way our eyes and our
Yes.
brains work. I wonder if that's a way of your body sensing that vibration before your eyes notice that it's coming.
It could be. It could be that just sensing that vibration of reality, just a slight change in reality. That's what I'm assuming. And I wish I could control it, man. I wish I could
Someone
control it.
that would be a great superpower, right? One of my friends over on the YouTube side, hello Angela, wants to know: are you more sensitive to the unseen than the seen?
Yes. I'll say the unseen is a bit more. I'm a bit more sensitive to that. I can feel and I can kind of sense when something is off and something is going to be different, or something is close by. Even I can usually kind of sense it. Like it just kind of, it's like a feeling. It's like a gut feeling. Like I just know that something's coming. Like for instance, here's an example. I think the reason why I see so many UFOs is because I just get this gut feeling to look up, and I'll just look up, and I'll see something. Like
Yeah.
it happened. It happened to me. It happened to me. What was it? What is today? So it'll be Saturday. It happened to me Saturday, and I was out on my route that I work because I work nights. So I was delivering, and as I was out on my route, it was getting to be day, and I'm just weirdly get this feeling. I'm like, I gotta look up. And I looked up, and then there was this white orb, and it manifested, got really big, and then as if it was just, it just decided, oh, I'm just gonna go up, and then it went straight up, and then it disappeared. And then I was like, well, okay.
Hmm.
and this is what happens to me on a regular basis. I see this stuff all the time, and but what's funny is I hardly ever think to pick up a damn camera or something like that. And usually when I do, I can't get it on the camera. It won't show up. I've taken pictures of these things and they don't show up a lot of the times. So again, I'm seeing what I'm seeing, but are they allowing others to see, so to speak? Maybe it's just meant
So
for
that
me.
kind of goes with my other question. Yeah, it could be. It could be because you're more open to the idea where somebody else would be like, nope. You know what I mean? Like, I definitely can see that. So you described your encounter. So my question to you is, how do you feel before, during, and after these encounters?
Well, it depends because the one that I had whenever it was before I got married to my wife. That one I didn't actually physically experience, but everybody around me experienced it. So,
Hmm.
and this is probably one of the weirder ones, honestly, that I had that is an experience of mine. I had so at the time, whenever I was living in Cape Girardeau, Missouri at the time. I was living right next to the Mississippi River, and well, anyway, I was sitting there at the house, hanging out with a buddy of mine. We're playing World of Warcraft. Okay, so I was a big time nerd back in the day. So World of Warcraft was a big time thing for me. My girlfriend, which is my wife now, she went out to go get some food with her friend. Well, anyway, they come back. They come into the house, and they're just like they're blowing a gasket. They're just like, I cannot believe what we just saw. Is like, did you have any experience here at the house? Did you see anything? Did they were worried about me, seriously worried about me and my buddy that was in the house. And I was like, no, I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then they explained the situation. Well, the situation was as they were coming home, they saw a black triangle. The best word I can term would be a TR3B. That's the best way I can explain the craft that they saw. It was a TR3B. Okay, and this
Mm-hmm.
craft was hovering about 50 feet above the house, just hovering, just sitting there. And it was black. It had orange dots in each of the triangle in the corners of it. It had an orange dot in the middle of it. and it was just sitting there hovering. And whenever they go back around the block, because they wanted to get a picture of it, because her friend had a camera to be able to take a picture of it. So as they came back around the block to try to take a picture of it, again, going back to a similar scenario that I was talking about earlier, she was trying to take a picture of it. Camera wouldn't take the picture. Camera wouldn't even focus on it. It wouldn't even get anything for a picture for this thing. Then it starts to hover off towards the river and towards southern Illinois. Well, anyway, she tells me this, and I'm like, wow, I don't know what to say about that. That's pretty amazing. And then she knows some things about some things too, and she said, do you have any missing time? And I said, I don't know. I mean, how would I know? And then I said, then my buddy, he said next to me, he goes, what were we doing? And then I go, I don't know. And then he goes, and then we kind of sat there and thought about it a bit. And I was like, we were playing World of Warcraft, right? And he goes, yeah. And then he said, who won the battleground? I don't know. And he didn't know. And he's like, how many kills did we have in the battleground? And I go, I don't know.
Did he freak out?
And yeah, he starts freaking out too. And he's like, I don't know, dude. He goes, I can't remember anything. He goes, what's going on? And I'm like, I don't know either, dude. I really don't know. And he's like, this ain't right. He goes, I remember this stuff. He goes, I remember this stuff. He goes, this ain't right. And I go, yeah, I know. This ain't right. I was like, our minds were messed with. And that was like a turning point for him as well. I think even for my wife, I think it might even have been a turning point for her too. And her friend. And that's just stuff people experience around me. That's just a taste.
So when they came back in, did they tell you about the triangle that they saw? And then did it make sense to you?
Well, me being me, I mean, I was like, well, yeah, that's weird. That's typical stuff that happens to me on a regular basis. But it didn't surprise me all that much. But at the same time, I had never had the experience that I know of my mind being messed with. And that's the first time I've ever actually known that my mind was messed with. And
how did you feel about that?
I felt intruded on. I felt like it was almost like the best way I can explain it would be like mind raped. That's the best way I can explain it. As weird as that sounds to say, but it is what it is. And it felt like I had no, say so. I had no nothing. And I felt like I was just being very heavily intruded on, not only in my house, but they came into my house, messed with my head, and then left and did who knows what they did with us. And at that point, it was like, that was a changing point for me. That was a big changing point for me. At that point, I was like, there's way more to this than I've been even thinking about. And it got me into thinking, man, like how many times has this happened to me? And then I would never have known. That's scary. And
so it was almost like if your friend wasn't there and your other friends weren't walking around the block, you would have never known that would have happened to you.
Yeah, I wouldn't have known. I would never have known. Never have known. And this is what I deal with. Gina. And when people say that you haven't seen reptilians, you haven't seen grays, you haven't seen insectoids, you haven't seen these things, I'm sorry, but I have. I deal with them. I see them. I deal with these UFOs. I deal with these things on a regular basis. And they mess with my head. They have at least one time. I mean, at least once. And I even have answers for what happened with that. And that's what's weird. And it gets even weirder with that. So, like the to get into that answer, I'll give it to you later because I feel like I need to get into the reasoning of how I got into all the crystal work and all the law of one information. But I need to get into all that too. But honestly, a really big turning point for
please
me.
do. If you have a rhythm, or you've kind of organized your thoughts, by all means, just go write down them, honey.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, as far as, a big turning point in my life, it was the 2004 election. And that was a big turning point for my life too, because in that election, I saw Barack Obama become president. And I think it was in that election anyway. And when I saw that, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to be straight up honest with all of you on here right now with this. And that is, I voted for Obama. And I regret it every day of my life.
Hey, I was a Democrat until 2 years ago, so I don't judge you at all.
I regret it every day of my life that I voted for that man the first time around. And the second time around, I was not dumb enough to vote for that man the second time around. And I'm going to be honest with you. The reason why I did it the first time around was because I was so mad at the Republican Party and what they did with Bush Jr. in their running things. I was so mad because I knew what they were. I knew that they were neocons. I knew that they were warmongers. And I wanted to go completely away from that. And they suckered me into it. They suckered me into voting for that trash bag human being, honestly. And then I became very black-pilled. Very, very black-pilled after realizing that it was on both sides of the fence. Both political parties are absolute junk. And then I started to realize, man, what are we going to do? We're screwed. That's kind of where I was at. That's kind of the point and where I was at. And at that point, I became very into a dark moment at a second time, so to speak. I became down this darkness of well, it's just all worthless. There's no point to anything. I was just so black-pilled. But gradually, these things start showing themselves heavily again to me, big time heavily at that point. And it was almost like they were beckoning me to say, stop, quit. It's like, it's not over. You're not done. There's more to do. You got more to do. And going back to when I was a kid, even there was times where I should have died. There was one time I can remember right now that I had a severe allergy reaction, and I came down the hill towards this house right now that I'm living in, and there was a school right up at the top of the hill over here that I went to school at. And when I came down the hill, I passed out. I could have very well died that day because I had a severe allergy reaction, and the teacher wouldn't allow me to leave to get my medicine. So my grandfather came up to give me my lunch, and I'm gasping for breath, and he's taking me down the hill, and I collapse halfway down the hill. And by the time my mom comes back home, she hears me breathing from the other room as she's coming into the garage and everything. She hears me all the way in the other room. My grandfather is sitting in the corner, just staring at me, looking like he's going to have a heart attack.
Every mother's panic.
Yeah. And I've had this happen to me multiple times. One time I had this happen to me when I had a reaction to the MMR vaccine. And my dad took me in to get the MMR vaccine. I remember this. Personally, I remember this. And he took me in to get this vaccine. And whenever I got into Schnucks parking lot, I started feeling off, and he got me into the actual store. He put me into the car seat. That's how far back this was. He put me into the car seat, and I passed out. He had to rush me back to the doctor's office. They had to put me on oxygen to get me to come back to life.
Jeez.
I should have died multiple times. I should have died multiple times.
Jay has a quick question for you. There's you definitely have a story to tell. Jay has a quick question for you. He wants to know, have you ever thought about writing a book on your experiences?
I've thought about it. I feel like what I'm doing now is kind of like writing a book almost, because I'm kind of
Yeah,
putting
your
all this
storytelling.
information. Yeah, I'm putting it all together on my show and on other people's shows and all of that. And I'm collectively getting this information together. So in a way, I kind of feel like I am putting together a story and a book, if you will. But I mean, eventually I might do that. I don't know. I have never really thought about it that far ahead. But I am thinking about putting a crystal work book together at some point in time. That is a thought I am actually having. And it'll be a crystal work book,
I've been doing it.
not yeah, it is a crystal work book designed around questions that were asked directly to the crystal itself, not about the ideas of people and other people's ideas about what they do, but what they actually do based upon what the crystal says that they do. That is what I'm thinking about putting together at some point in time. But yeah, um,
Interesting.
but yes, but anyways, going back to it, I eventually find this group called Edge of Wonder. I don't know if you've ever heard of these guys or not, but Edge of Wonder was kind of like a big thing on YouTube way back in the day before the purge happened. If you remember, you guys remember the purge that happened on YouTube. Well, they were purged. They were one of the ones that were purged. And Edge of Wonder, I found those guys when I was heavily black-pilled. I'm going to be honest with you. I was heavily black-pilled at that point in time. And I found these guys because, and what was funny was, is I found them, and I think it was a Mandela, effect episode. I think that they were doing, but well, anyway, I started realizing that these guys' information lines up with my information, and all the digging that I was doing on a lot of things. And I was like, wow, like it's like pieces of a puzzle. I was like, what they have fits with
That's
what I
actually my
have, and
second show. The
you're,
Mandela Effect was
you
one of my first few shows.
oh, really? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's an interesting thing. The Mandela effect is interesting, especially the remote viewing information on the Mandela effect. But
Mhm.
anyway, so so I found these guys, and I'm just like, these guys are speaking my language. These guys know what I know, and I'm start to become a heavy like person that is talking in their chat and hanging out with these guys essentially. Well, eventually they bring on a guy on their show by the name of John Vivanco. John Vivanco is essentially he's a remote viewer that has a whole remote viewing team and all of that together and all of that stuff. And he was giving his information on there. And what was funny was is whenever I first saw this guy, it kind of similar to what you had with me. I said, I know this guy from somewhere. I know this guy
Yeah.
from somewhere. I don't know how. I don't know why. Like I just know him.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know how. Well, anyway, time passes on. Okay, I mean, time passes on quite a bit, and I end up finding the law of one information. Now, I hear about the law of one information, believe it or not, from David Wilcock. If there is anything that David Wilcock has ever done for society, and that was to help give out the information of the law of one. And you may not like David Wilcock. There's a lot of people who don't, but I'm going to put it out there to you this way. I did find the law of one information from him. And if it wasn't for him, I probably would never have found it. But that changed my life. Once I found that law of one information, it changed my life. It allowed me to see the things that I've been searching for all my life. The answers for why the things were the way they were for me all my life was pretty much all in that book. And it was like the guide path for everything that was going on with me. And it blew my mind that it was in a book. And then I start figuring out that I started figuring out that I need to find myself a bit further. I need to figure out that that the way that I was living my life was just, not right, in certain aspects. And I started realizing that, that I needed to be a bit more positive. I needed to start looking at things a bit more positively and things of that nature. I didn't really take in the law of one information until later, as funny as that sounds. I found out about it. I sat on it essentially. I was like, oh, I'm going to really look into this really heavily someday, because this is hitting my alley really, really heavily. And then it took my wife actually buying the books for me. And she ended up buying the books for me. I think it was for Christmas or something to that effect. And she bought the books for me, and she's like, you've been talking about these books for a long period of time. I was like, here's the books. And even then, I sat on them for a long while, and it took me like a long while before I actually started reading them. Heavily started reading them, and I even sat on it for a while, even after I got into book 2, and I sat on it. And then this was before I started Wondercast. But anyway, so going a little further with this, the next big thing that was a big turning point for me was when Trump got nominated as president of the United States. And then I started to see that, hey, this guy really does do something different than all these other cats that have been in the White House at this point. This guy really does actually care. At least it seems like he cares. If he doesn't care, he's putting on a good facade that he don't. So I just fell for the guy. I really did. Truly, I fell for the guy. I was like, this guy right here, this guy's fighting the good fight. Even though I may not agree with him 100%, he's not Jesus incarnate or anything like that. But he is doing a good job overall. And I saw that. It was a big turning point for me, because it started to turn me way away from being black-pilled, way away from it. And I started to see the hope at the light at the end of the tunnel, if you will. And at that point, I think around about that point is whenever they had the purge, if I remember correctly, on YouTube. So Edge of Wonder became essentially Rise.tv, because they had nowhere else to go. At that point in time, Rumble kind of really wasn't really a thing too much at that point in time. It was kind of an up-and-coming thing. It hadn't really started to really pick up really at that point. So they were legitimately without a place, without a home. So they ended up making a show called a channel called Rise.tv. If any of you guys are out there and you want to check out Rise.tv, it's basically like the Netflix of the weird, if you will. And it's kind of like Gaia or something similar to that, but it's their own thing. Well, anyway, on that channel, I see a channel, or I see a show pop up that I'm like heavily invested in, called Chronicles of the Psychic Spy, which was headed by John Vivanco, which was the remote viewer that I was like heavily involved with. And I saw that, I was like, wow, that's this guy. I know this guy from somewhere. Well, anyway, he brings on his right-hand lady, so to speak, if you will, Heather Offord. Well, anyway, Heather Offord, when I saw her for the first time, I was like, that girl, I know her somewhere for sure. Like, there is no mistaking this. I know this girl from somewhere. John, yeah, I know him. I felt like I knew him, but this girl, like, there's gotta be maybe I saw her like, somewhere, like for sure. Like, I knew I had seen her somehow. And it didn't make any sense. Well, anyway, fast forward. Okay. Let's see here. Fast forward a little bit. I start to make online friends, I guess, if you will. You'll see a lot of my online friends are here in this chat right now. You'll see, we got some Mama Hood up in here. We got some Darth. We got some M337. We got Pooh Monkey. We got, all these guys that, I've been hanging out with for a good amount of time. And I started hanging out with these guys and getting to really know all of them and everything, and getting that camaraderie going. And this is one of the first times in my life that I started actually feeling a sense of belonging in a group, as weird as that sounds. And
Nope, I
Even
totally 100% get it.
yeah, and it did not, it just did not make sense that, out of all the people that I've encountered, these people online, though, these are the ones that I'm more closely affiliated with. And it's so strange. And it was almost like meant to be, as weird as that sounds. It was like meant to me for me to find these people, and it was meant for me to associate with these people and all of it. And it eventually became boredom became a thing, and then it started taking me down the Wondercast, rabbit hole, so to speak. And then it became Wondercast.
Mhm.
Well, I eventually started to do the law of one. I started to think about it. I was like, I need to do the law of one information starting into the show. And I've only read 2 books at this point in time. Remember, I'd stopped. I had stopped on book 2. I had stopped. I said, I just stopped. Well, anyway, I started asking people, that was friends, and I said, hey, would you guys be interested in listening to the Law of One information if I read the book, The Law of One information, to you guys? And they said, yeah, we'd be interested. We'd be interested in hearing it. So it became a part of the show. So then I started reading it. This is where the things started to really take a turn into the absolute crazy, the weird, the miracles, all of it. This is where it all begins. And so we start the show off. I start reading the Law of One books, and people are really digging it. People are really starting to get into it, the idea of it anyway. And I finally get to the where I had left off at. And I tell people, I'm like, look, it's like, you guys are caught up to where I am. I was like, we're going to be learning this together, guys. We're going to be learning this together. As I read, we're going to be learning this together. I'm going to try to explain as much as I can to you guys while I do this. I was like, but we're going to be learning this together. This is a teach, learn, teach scenario right here. We're working together here. And then it became, the book started matching my life, like as things were going
The
on.
similarities.
Yeah. As weird as that sounds. Like when I would talk about a topic, something would happen within my life that has to do with that topic, or something that was in that book that has to do with what was going on in that book. It was almost like it was extra learning that you had to learn to teach you about certain things that were going along with that book.
Hmm.
Then as weird as this sounds, it became, I started getting into heavily into the alien stuff at that point, like really invested into the alien stuff. And I started doing my show on reptilians, the grays, all of that stuff. And I started noticing more and more things started happening at that time. Weird things. I do mean things that was disturbing.
Okay.
Yeah, it was disturbing. Like they were starting to come to my daughter,
Mm.
and they were trying to communicate with her. There was things that I was right around the time when I started this. There's an opening thing that I have for my show that's like just it shows an opening of my greenhouse. And this greenhouse has it's just a picture of my or video of my greenhouse, and all of a sudden this weird noise happens. This was right before I started Wondercast, might I add.
Mhm.
Right before I was getting ready to start. It was like the next week I was going to start it. And when that happened, I was out there in the greenhouse, and I was tending to my plants, and then all of a sudden I hear this growl. And I do mean a growl. And it was not normal. It was not any normal animal that is in the woods around Missouri. I'm sorry. This was not a bear. This was not anything that I can think of that is in these woods. Not a mountain lion, not any of it. It sounded like a mixture between the audio that I had is not a good audio recording, not at all. It doesn't serve the sound justice. It came from behind the greenhouse, behind the shed. And it was like a mixture of a growl mixed with a trilling sound like a alligator would make.
I was going to
Well,
say that alligator growl is deep.
yeah, and it was like, and it was like trilly, like really trilly when it went off and as it growled. And
Hmm.
I froze. I was just like, what do I do? Do I move? Should I move? What is this? I was like, I don't know what in the world this is. And I came to the conclusion that what it was, it took me a while to figure this out, but I came to the conclusion it was a reptilian, and it was the same reptilian that me and my buddy saw in the parking lot of my house. My buddy McTurnt, I don't know if he's in the chat here or not. I don't know if he is or not, but McTurnt, he witnessed a reptilian with me one day. We were sitting in my driveway. We were just sitting there hanging out and chatting and talking. And then I look over towards my greenhouse, and this being comes walking out in front of it. And it was not visible per se. It was, the best way I can explain it would be translucent, because you could see the outside.
So kind of like when you drop, so like that water droplet effect.
Yeah, it was like you could see right through it, but at the same time, you could see the outside edges of it and what it looked like on the outside edges.
Okay.
And it was shimmery.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so creepy, because this is the first one I've ever seen that looked more reptilian than the other ones that I've seen. Because I've seen other reptilians and they look more humanoid. This one looked more reptile-like. I mean, it looked more reptile-like than the others did. And
so maybe like an elder.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe. I mean, it could have been. I don't know. But it was creeping along like this. And I'm like, what? I look at it, I'm like, I'm freaking out. And then I look at my buddy.
Apocalyptic said Bigfoot got caught taking a shit behind Ash's shed.
Hey, Pop, good to see you. But anyway, so my buddy, I look at him real quick, and because I'm thinking maybe he's seen it too, maybe. And I look at him, and he turns his head away real quick. I'm like, did you just see what I just saw? And he goes, he just sat there for a moment. He goes,
I don't want to talk about it.
Move into the other yard over there, and then duck back behind some stuff over there. I was like, yeah, I saw that. And I go, okay, all right. So it was kind of mind blowing, because I was like, this is the first time somebody else other than me has saw a reptilian with me. That was the first time.
That's
but
crazy.
he saw one with me one time. He says he doesn't know exactly what it was that he saw, but he said he saw a shimmering creature of some type duck down back behind some stuff in the yard next to me. So he saw what I saw. But anyway, so at this point, when going back to the story here, so at this point, as I said before, a lot of the things that are happening in the book are happening to me in real life now at this point. So I'm getting into the parts where I start to get very sick, and I do mean very sick. Like I felt like I was dying. Best way I can explain it. And this was right around the time period that I started doing the Law of One information on psychic attacks. And psychic attacks are essentially higher density beings that are manipulating your body chemistry or your mind for the purposes of doing certain types of things. Whether
so
that
they
be
probably were draining you of your frequency.
They were attacking my frequency, and they were causing me to get sick. That's what essentially was going on. And at this time period, this is a rough one for me, because this is where it starts to get
Take your
really
time.
interesting. My mother, I was helping my mother move her business, and at that time, and I was just now coming down with whatever it was, and she turned to me and she said, "You don't look good." It's like, "You look really bad." And I go, "Yeah, I don't feel good." And she said, "What's wrong?" And I go, "Well, I know what's wrong." I was like, "But you won't believe me." And so I continue on. I'm thinking, maybe I can kick this. Maybe I can kick this. Maybe I can kick this. Nobody gets sick with whatever it was I had. Nobody. Not even nobody in my house gets sick with what I had in that house. Nobody. And it even changes form. The sickness that I had changed form. It turned into a stomach bug. It went from excessive fever into congestion, into a stomach bug that would not end. And it felt like I was going to either die, because I couldn't keep water down, I couldn't keep food down, I couldn't keep anything down. And it was like that for days and days and days. I was losing weight. I felt like I was dying. Finally, I turn to my wife and I say, in the bed, I say, "Honey," I was like, "I think I'm being psychically attacked. Um, I think they're trying to kill me." And she said, I'll never forget this. She said, she turned over and in her bed and she grabbed something off of her nightstand. And then she handed it to me and she said, "Here, take this." And I said, I look at it and I'm like, "What is this?" And I'm like, It's a crystal. It's an obsidian crystal. It's an obsidian crystal. Okay. That's what she handed me. It was an asking obsidian crystal. It was a pendulum crystal, if you will. And it was on a chain. And she said, "Here, take this." And I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, what do you expect me to do with this thing? I was like, "What is this for?" I was like, "What is this about?" And then she goes, "Just take it." She says, "Just take it, hold it." And I said, she goes, "It may help." She goes, "I don't know if it will, but it might help you." And I'm like, at this point, I tell her, I was like, "I'll try anything at this point," because I can't eat, I can't
Yeah.
drink, I feel like I'm dying. And I was like, all right, fine. So I will. This is the first miracle I saw. Within 5 to 10 minutes, no nauseousness, none at all. And I was like, "What is going on?" I couldn't believe this. And then I'm just like, how is this possible? And then she goes, "Yeah." She goes, "You can ask questions through it about yourself." That's what she said. It was, you could ask questions through it about yourself. And I'm like,
Mhm.
"Okay." I was like, "All right." I was like, "This is the strangest occurrence that I've ever had." And from that point on, I got better. And I can't explain that. I cannot explain that other than the power that the vibration of that crystal somehow helped me get better.
Mhm.
Then I started asking questions through this thing, because she taught me how to do it. She was like, "Here," he's like, "You got to figure out what your yeses are, figure out what your no's are." And all of that. She goes, "All right." And then once you figure all that out, then you can ask questions. And she says, "You can ask questions about yourself." Then I started to find out weird stuff, that I was able to ask questions outside of myself. And it didn't make sense. And it got to the point where I was asking questions to this crystal, and then I said, "Crystal," I was like, I even asked the crystal this. I said, "Crystal, are you having a hard time believing that I can ask questions outside myself?" And it even said yes. Like it was having a hard time believing that I could do it. And
Interesting.
well, anyway, yeah, I come to conclusions after like many questions into this thing. I started to find out that the things in the law of one were correct. it was cross-referencing things that was in the law of one. So I could ask questions that was in the law of one, and it would very pinpointedly answer the question exactly as it was in the law of one.
Wow.
I could do it also with remote viewing. I started to be able to ask questions and figure out that I could cross-reference people who were remote viewing with it. And then I was like, so in other words, this is legitimate. I started to realize that there's some legitimacy to this. Because if it's cross-referencing one access point and it's cross-referencing another access point, there's some legitimacy to this. And then it led me down a whole nother rabbit hole of, then I started to realize, okay, well, I've always felt weird, like I didn't belong here. I've always felt like there was something about me that wasn't right. And I started reading in the Law of One about the wanderers and all of that stuff. And I said, am I a wanderer? And it said yes. And then I was like, what density? And am I the good wanderer? Because there's good and bad wanderers. There's the good guys and the bad guys, and they come back and they do a job.
Yeah.
That's what a wanderer is, a star seed, if you will, a wanderer. They're angelic and demonic, devilish beings that have come back to do a job, whether that be for good or for bad. And if you will, come back into time to do that job, because we are living in the past in comparison to them. They are living in the future, if you will. And they come back through our vibration that is overlapping ours to be able to do what they do, as well as come back through the incarnation process to be able to be beings like me to do the jobs that they do. So I found out that I was a fifth density wanderer. Had no idea where I came from, because there was no way for me to find that information out. It's like there's so many star systems out there. There's so many planets. How was I to know which star system I came from? And for that matter, I have no memory of anything from my past, because I went through the forgetting. This is in the Law of One information. There's something that they call the forgetting. And when you go through the forgetting, when you incarnate here, you don't remember anything that you were typically from a previous existence. And that's because, as Ra says, because for wanderers specifically, they don't want wanderers to come back here to become gods. That's not their job. That's not what they were put here to do. They're not here to become gods. They're here to become people to help guide others, or people to help separate others from the Creator. Does that make sense? So at this point, I know that I'm a wanderer. At this point, I know that I'm a fifth density wanderer. And now crystal work has become a heavy part of my Wondercast shows, because I started down this path, and my wife set me down this path. And it was because I was sick to the point of almost dying. Okay. Now here, getting into the second miracle. My son, about 2 weeks later, a week and a half, 2 weeks later, he gets sick with something else. Now they've not focused on me so much because they can't get to me. Now they're focusing on my family. Now they're attacking my family. So now my son is deathly sick. He's running 104 temperature. He's got his head buried into the edge of the couch. And he's miserable. And give me a moment, because this one's very emotional for me.
Take a deep breath, because I would lose my shit, because you're fighting something you can't.
Yeah,
you can't see it, and when you can't see it, you feel even more helpless than when you can see it.
Yeah, and at this point, I'm feeling terrible for my son, because I feel like I'm to blame. I'm to blame now for my son being attacked, and I'm beating myself up. And I don't know how to explain it, but something came to me. And it said, it says, put the crystal on him. It wasn't my voice. It was not my voice. And it basically said, put the crystal on him. And I at this point I'm floored, because it wasn't. I'm never. This is the first time I've heard a voice that wasn't mine in my own head. And I said, sure, I believe you. I walked in there, grabbed up the obsidian crystal that my wife used to help heal me with, basically, and my son's leg was kind of in a crook position to where I could put it into the crook of his leg. And I put it into the crook of his leg, the obsidian crystal. And I'll be damned if his temperature broke immediately. It was like a switch went off, and he went from 104 to normal in a second.
I really appreciate you telling your story.
And well, anyway, he sat up and he said, I feel a lot better. My mouth dropped. And it was a miracle. It was a straight up miracle. There's no other explanation for that other than it was a miracle. I witnessed a miracle. I witnessed to another human being. I mean, for myself, I can say, oh, it's just, I could even, write it off as, it's just me really thinking that this is going to work. So it's just, it works, something like that. This was not that. This wasn't that. He didn't know I was going to do that. He didn't know that I was going to put that on him. He had no clue. He was miserable. He was sick. He was feeling like he was going to die. And as soon as he got that on him, it was like that. And it was mind-blowing. It changed that changed my life. And that sent me heavily with the crystal work. That put me heavily into crystal work. Without that crystal, he wouldn't have gotten better. And every time that crystal was away from him or me, we both got something wrong with us. We were being attacked. It eventually ended up where we were going into this situation where we were at the what we referred to as we refer to this as the Summit of Salt. It was something that Mama in the chat here, she helped put together, and it was to help all of us kind of get away for a few days, so to speak, and just kind of just sit back, relax, and chill with each other. And she knew that she felt deep inside of her somehow that she knew that Darth, me, her, we all needed it. I don't know, but she knew. And if it wasn't for that time, I probably wouldn't have gotten some rest, and I wouldn't have been able to figure things out and get some things going for myself, and get a defense plan against these beings that were attacking us. If it wasn't for that Summit of Salt, I would not have figured some more things out. While we were there, well, beforehand, before we were going there, something attacked me again, and it caused my shoulder to really start having pain, really bad. And it was relentless. And this was a time period where I had no other obsidian to put on myself. The only thing I could do was put it on my son, because my son was trying to fight off whatever it was that was being done to him. So my daughter was also battling being sick too, because she was sick with something else too. Again, probably something that somebody else was doing too. So she was getting over hers finally. but she had an obsidian crystal that she put on herself. So she had one for herself, and it got her through it pretty quick. But for me and my son, we had to trade off because there was only one for both of us. And for whatever reason, at this
Yeah.
point in time, my wife wasn't like getting anything done to her for whatever reason. I don't know why. But anyway, so we get out there, and as weird as this sounds, it was like peace. It was so peaceful out there. It was so much peace out there. And then one of my friends who was out there, he said, "Look at all this calcite. Look at all this calcite that's surrounding this whole property. Look at all this calcite everywhere." And I'm like, "Calcite?" I said, "Really?" I was like, so then I started asking questions about calcite. Then I started to find out that calcite has interesting properties. Calcite can be used to hedge out dark beings. If you use calcite an inch apart, now this is prior to blessing. An inch apart is the maximum you can have it apart from one another. If you put it an inch apart around a circle around you, anything that is dark of fourth or fifth density, demons and devils, if you will, they cannot enter into that whatever that is. They cannot enter into it. And I found out that if you blessed it, that you could actually get it to be 7 inches apart. Now, that is, as funny as that is, that 7 repeats quite a bit. Again, going back into angelic numbers, the 7 densities, all of that. It's all represented, even in the structuring of the crystal and how the crystals work. The 7 becomes, once you blessed it, it becomes 7 inches apart. So then you can have it 7 inches apart around you, and you can legitimately hedge out from dark beings anything that would come into that area. Okay. And if it wasn't for my buddy Aso, I wouldn't have figured that out. And if it wasn't for Mama doing what she did to get us there, we wouldn't have figured that out. So again, there's reasons for everything.
Happens for a reason.
Everything happens for a reason. And when I went home with this, I grabbed up some calcite crystals. I grabbed up a bunch. And that's also where I learned how to bless. I used the information from the Law of One information on how to do, how to communicate with the love and light and bring it down, so to speak, for the purposes of doing work. I used that for the purposes of using it for the how to do blessing. I blessed the crystals, sent people home with them that wanted them, and then I took home a bunch of crystals from my house. I lined my whole room in my bedroom with these crystals. As funny as it sounds, whenever I did that, my room was about as peaceful as you could get. I mean, there was nothing that came into that room. It felt good. It felt at ease in there. There was no problems. Whenever anybody in my house felt like off, I would ask crystal work question. I'd say, "Hey, is there a psychic attack happening to this individual or this individual?" And they would say yes, or they would say no. And then when they would say yes, I'd go to that person. I'd say, "Hey, come to my room. You need to go chill out for a bit." And then almost every time that person would say, "I do feel a little weird. I feel a little bit off." And I go, and then they would feel better. As weird as that sounds, it worked. And
it's not weird, because I totally believe in that stuff. My husband jokes that my husband jokes all the time that when he's dying, he says, "I know you. Please do not fill my room with crystals and different plants. Just give me the strongest psychedelics they have out there and let me take my trip that way." Because I'm the same way. I put them out with the full moon. I stick them out there. They're above the door. Listen, I get it.
It works. I have seen miracles done to other people, not even just what I've done and I've seen other people's miracles happen from things that I've helped them with crystal work. Mama can attest to it. I've helped my buddy Six out with it. There's several people I've helped out with it. I mean, there was even a lady that we know. We'll just say that we know her. that she has problems with a dark being. It was a dark being that was harassing her at her work. And I told her, at first she was coming at him with, I always curse at him and say, "Oh, go away," and all this other stuff. And I was like, "You're going about it wrong." I told her, I was like, "What you need to do is you need to say, I wish you nothing but love, light, and happiness and goodness and all of these things, all the positive energy that you can send towards that thing. That will help." Yes, it did help, but it wasn't enough. So I told her obsidian. I was like, obsidian, wear obsidian. Because I found out that obsidian helps to block off dark beings. Found that out. So if you're having problems with fourth and fifth density beings, or if you're feeling off, you feel like, why do I keep getting sick? Or why does this happen to me? And all this stuff happens to me, and I just can't understand why all this negativity happens to me. Try wearing some obsidian. It might help you out. So she tried that. Sure enough, that was what it was. That was what she needed. She needed the obsidian. She needed to change her attitude towards this thing. And it made a world of difference. So I've personally seen miracles with crystals. And so anybody who tells me that crystals don't have vibration, don't have the ability to change things, they do. And there was a lady.
That's going to be one of my next episodes.
Well, good. You need to. I think you should.
I did the clothing. Yeah, I did the clothing. Then I want to do the crystals, and then I want to do like law of attraction on how and why we all meet certain people for certain reasons, because the magnetism is strong with,
the law of attraction is really interesting, because that is a legitimate thing that the law of one even speaks about. It says that if you put your intentions out there, your intentions can create this in this reality or another. So that means that if you strongly have a feeling towards something, you can bring that towards you, or you can make that happen for yourself. Whether that be in this reality or another. Again, going back to what Jesus said, Jesus did say something similar to this. He said, he gave the instance of, if you've thought about having relations with another man's wife, then you've done it. Getting back into the concept of you've done it in this reality or another. You get it? So law of attraction has a lot to do with it. The like, for instance, a lot of darker humans, they will tend to gravitate towards the law of attraction only because they know that it can manifest materialistic gains for themselves. And that's not necessarily a good way to view it. You should always view it as trying to vibrationally attune yourself with things that are more like you, or to attune others to more of a vibration that is more attuned with the love and light. But yes, I mean, that is essentially all this crystal stuff is just amazing. I mean, it has really truly changed my life, and it is a huge turning point for my life in what I'm doing now. And if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have been able to find out about the Pleiadian thing. And here's how I found that out. So I'm on my Wondercast, okay? And at this point, I've implemented my crystal work into Wondercast officially. And at this point, now I'm cross-referencing things from crystal work through remote viewing, as well as law of one information, as well as research. So I'm using all of these different things put together to create a visualization of what is reality for what we're dealing with, okay? So when, like, for instance, I always say, if I'm hitting on one thing, okay. But if I'm hitting on two, if I'm hitting on three, come on now. If I'm hitting on four, come on now. There's no escaping that at that point. So whenever I started doing some digging and information on remote viewing, in particular, a remote viewing case in particular. And this particular remote viewing case is what changed my whole perspective on everything that's going on and why everything was the way it was from when I was a kid all the way up till now. And I was doing digging on the sky stone. Okay, I was doing some digging on early visitors here to this world in this realm of existence that have proof, so to speak, of their landing and things of that nature. Okay, so and I don't know if you've ever heard about the sky stone. Have you ever heard about the sky stone at all?
No, I was going to say I've heard a lot of crystals, and I've never heard of the sky stone.
Okay, well, the sky stone is only found in one area, one place in all of the world, and it's in Sierra Leone, Africa. And
Hmm.
there's a people there that are known as the Nomali tribe, and they have a story. Now, this is the story that long ago the gods came from the heavens, and that the reptilian gods saved them from the dark gods that were coming from the heavens to take over, so to speak, if you will. And they blew up the godlike beings from out of the sky, and then they told them, "Worship us, because we are the gods that you have been looking for." Essentially, these reptilian beings essentially said this to them. Okay, that's the story that they have. Okay, now there's a certain sect of the Nomali tribe that has a different view of it. Okay, there's a certain sect of the Nomali tribe that actually believes the opposite. They actually believe that the beings that were coming from the skies were the good beings, and the reptilians were the bad beings, and they took over reigns of control of power. Okay, so there's a split in the Nomali tribe on what they believe on this. Okay, so one half of them believes the reptilians are the good guys, and then the other side of them believes that the reptilians were kind of the manipulators of the situation and scenario. Okay, so there's
Kind of
this
like they're on
guy.
two different frequencies.
Yeah, two different frequencies. So this guy goes to Sierra Leone, Africa, looking for rare stones, if you will. Okay, and he's just trying to make money, if you will. He contacts the Nomali tribe, and he's talking about how he's looking for these stones and things of that nature. And the Nomali tribe says, well, they had gotten to talking about their gods, and they know where the sky fell. And he says, what do you mean you know where the sky fell? And they said, yeah, the sky fell, and it fell over here, and it left these stones in the ground. Well, anyway, he goes
Oh.
to investigate this, and he finds these blue stones that are in the shape of a pyramid. Quite honestly, they're in the shape of a pyramid. And these blue stones are made of a rare material that nobody has ever found before until this point in time. And it's primarily made
Is
of
this like
oxygen.
sky ice?
Well, I'm sorry, what?
Is this like sky ice? Is it like a dark, dark blue crystal?
It's a light blue, kind of
A light blue?
light blue to kind of a mid blue tone color, and it's primarily made of oxygen, as I understand it. As weird as that sounds, it's
Hmm.
made of oxygen. And well, anyway, it's when you feel it, supposedly it feels really light, and it feels like almost lighter than air almost when you even feel it in your hands. It doesn't make sense. There's a lot of even water in it. As weird as that sounds, there's a lot of weird stuff about this stone. And well, anyway, there's a story that was told on Chronicles of Psychic Spy. I want to say it was Crashes of the Visitors. I want to say it was that episode. I'm not 100%. But there was a story in one of them where both John and Heather were talking about the Sky Stone. So their story was interesting. Their story was that what happened is Heather found John, and the only reason why she found John was because John was doing remote viewing, and she had heard of remote viewing, and she was kind of interested in it. So she kind of was like, "Oh, I'm kind of interested in doing this." So she did it. Well, as she did it, she realized, "Hey, I know you," because she had memories. Unfortunately, for a lot of people who go through the forgetting, she had memories, and she had a lot of memories from her Pleiadian past. And she had memories that of John. And she was like, I know you from long ago. And John was like, I don't know about that, because John don't have any memories of a lot of this stuff. And he's like, I don't know. And it took him remote viewing it to find out she's telling the truth, and finding out that, hey, we do have a past. Well, anyway, come to find out, their past was directly connected, and it's connected to the Sky Stone. So she's always had this feeling that the Sky Stone was something that she needed to look into. She found out about the Sky Stone and told John about it. And then they started looking into the Sky Stone, found out that they have a connection to the Sky Stone, and here's their connection. So their story is that long ago, they came from a fifth dimension. They say dimension. Fifth dimension Pleiadian star system together on this ship. And they came here long ago for the purposes of ascension, and for the purposes of allowing early humanity to be able to be taken in during one of the harvests that was happening on this planet at the time. And they were trying to give out a vibration of the creator through their ship. And this ship was in the shape, and everybody knows this ship. Everybody knows this shape. Everybody has seen it. Everybody knows what this is. But they all have a bad intention behind it in their thought process because of the Illuminati and what they have done with it. But the ship was in the shape of a pyramid, and it was blue in color, and it had a eye emblazoned in the side of it. Now, what does that look like? It's the eye of providence. They always talk about it as the eye of providence, the all-seeing eye, all of that stuff. Now, when you break this back down into the most basic principles of what that symbol is, that symbol is a symbol of the creator in its most basic form, if you will, meaning that the eye of all, the sees all, that is all a part of all. Okay. Now the Illuminati have taken this symbol of that is a representation of the creator, and they've taken it and they've dirtied it. They made it as dirty as they can possibly make it, and they've turned as many people as they can away from it. Yeah. And this is just as simple as a representation of the creator through a ship. Okay, that's what that was originally. Okay. And when they came here long ago, they were the people in that story that the Nomali tribe had. They were the people from the Pleiadian star system that came from that star system for the purposes of ascension. When they came here, they knew it was a one-way ticket. They knew it was a one-way ticket, and that they knew that they weren't going to go back home because they were wandering. They had made the contract to wander, to become a starseed upon entering into this system, and they knew that they had two jobs to do primarily. One was for the ascension while they were here, and two was for the purposes of incarnating into a human form for the purposes of doing jobs, okay, for the love and light. So they knew that it was a one-way ticket, and that's how love and light beings do it. They go in knowing that they're going to get ended, and they just allow it to happen. They allow the darkness to take them, if you will. The dark side, different scenario. They get forced into the scenario because they don't want to go through the forgetting. They don't want to help others. They are forced. Essentially, how you get chosen from the dark side to get into wandering, they basically say, "Hey, you have too much love in you. You have too much light in you. That's weakness. We see that as weakness. Get out. Do a job until you can get it better and get it right." That's essentially what they do. And they force them into death, if you will, so that way they can incarnate. Now, this is the situation and scenario that their story is, okay, that I was investigating through crystal work, okay? So I was investigating this through crystal work because I wanted to see if their story was true. I really just honestly wanted to find out if their story was true. When I asked the questions, it said yes, their story is true. Then I found it really interesting. I thought to myself, I said, interesting that I'm a fifth density whatever. And then I find it interesting that they call themselves fifth dimension beings from the Pleiadian star system. So then I thought to myself, I was like, is it possible that I'm from the same star system? I asked the question and it said yes. My mouth dropped because now I have an answer for what star system that I came from. My next question was, do I know these two other individuals? Yes, I do. The next question after that was, did I come here long ago with these individuals? Yes, I was. I did. Next question after that was, did I come here on the same ship as these two other individuals? It said yes. So,
wow.
So now I've come to the conclusion that me and these two other individuals came here together long ago for the purposes of ascension 2 times. Once in the previous ascension that was prior to this, could have been the flood. It could have been the Great Flood. I'm not exactly sure. And the next ascension, or preparing people for the next ascension that is to come. That's my job, and I understand.
Don't they say we have 10 ascensions?
According to the law of one, I'm not exactly sure on the 10, but I know on the law of one, they say that there's three big ones. They fall in 25,000 year cycles, or around about 25,000 years, anywhere from 24 to 25,000 year cycles. And then there's a really lessened one around about 12,000 years. So you have a 12,000 year cycle of something bad that happens, like really bad that happens. It takes humanity pretty much back down to almost nothing. And then the 24,000 to 25,000 year cycle one is a really bad one. And that one pretty much exterminates a lot of life. And it makes things start all over. And we're on the third one. We've had two big ones. As according to the law of one, we're sitting at 70. We're close to 75,000 years into where we came in at. So we're on our last 25,000 year cycle. So it could be any day. It could be any time. As it says in the Bible, even the angels in heaven don't know the end times when it comes. So it could be any time. But that's the reason why I'm here. That's the reason why others are here incarnated, for the purposes of getting this information out, helping people to realize the spiritual connections that they all should have, as well as understanding just the reality that we're living in and how crazy this reality is that we live in. It's all an illusion, honestly, but it's an illusion that is based upon all things for us to understand and to learn from.
Yeah, Leah says souls always recognize each other before we do. That's why you're almost instinctively drawn to certain people for reasons you can't explain, and you know you can trust them and are safe with them.
Exactly. And a lot of times it's pre-incarnatively done this way, and you know these individuals because you've had those connections prior to this. I've learned that, like
almost
the higher
like
self. Yep.
Yeah, almost like you were with each other in a past life and you reconnect because you'll always find each other again and you'll reconnect, although you're in different parts of the world, possibly in different relationships, but you know that connection is there.
Yep. it's crazy how all of this links up, and when you start really digging into all this, with the law of one information and remote viewing and crystal work and research just in general, you can paint a pretty good picture of what reality is, at least as far as this illusion goes, as far as the reality goes. But yeah, this is, I don't have any memories from my Pleiadian past other than what I found out through crystal work, remote viewing, and other aspects of things. And that's how I found things out. And to add into this, everybody has this thought of what did we look like prior to this? That's the next thought that I had after this. After finding out what it was that I was like, what did I look like? I kind of want to know what it was similar. What does a human look like? What does a Pleiadian look like?
I always hoped I had long legs.
Hey, maybe you did. But anyway, so I knew I could never get to this answer, because every time I would look up online a Pleiadian, I'd look up Pleiadian pictures or whatever, I'd ask my crystal, is this what a Pleiadian looks like? And it'd say no. And it kept telling me no. Like, it was like, no. And it was like, at this point, if you don't believe in crystal work at this point, after that many no's in a row, you're just kind of like, whatever. Okay. So I keep getting no's. I keep getting no's. And finally, I just I give up. I'm not going to be able to find this out. I'm not going to be able to figure out what we used to look like or anything like that. Fast forward, my son. We were talking about the pyramids, the things that were just happening with the pyramid structures that were going on underneath the Great Giza pyramids. I don't know if you've heard about that, but it's crazy. He brings up, he goes, so I wonder if the mythology behind Thoth being buried underneath there is correct. Because the Egyptian, he asked that question to me. Again, going back to my son.
How old was he?
He's 9. He's 9. And he goes, I wonder if Thoth is buried, like as they say, below the pyramids. And I was like, well, I mean, I could crystal work question it. And he said, sure. So I
let's do this, Dad.
Yeah. And so I crystal work questioned it for him, and it said yes, that Thoth is buried below the Great Pyramids in Giza, somewhere in the that structure underneath. And then I asked the question, because I knew this was part of the mythology, that supposedly he's carrying the original emerald tablets and he's clutching them in his death grasp as he's buried with them. Now, these are the original emerald tablets, the ones that have not been changed by Orions. These are the ones that have been messed with at all. And supposedly he's buried with them. So I asked the question, is he buried with them? And it said yes. So then my son was just mind blowing. He's like, so he's an alien, right? I go, yeah, I was like, yeah, he's an alien. And then he said, well, what does he look like? I was like, well, I can show you what Thoth looks like according to the Egyptians. So I showed him a picture of what Thoth looked like according to the Egyptians. And he said, that's crazy. So he's a bird-headed person. I was like, yeah, he's a bird-headed person. And then he goes, Dad, he goes, what density is Thoth? And I said, I don't know. So then I asked, and I found out he was 5th density. And he goes, Dad, could it be possible that you might have looked like him? And I said, son, I don't know. And he's like, ask. I was like, okay. So I asked, and I said, is the bird-headed form the natural form of the Pleiadian people? And it said yes. So
wow.
I guess I was a bird-headed person at one point in time. But I would have never found that out if it wouldn't have been for my son asking all those questions and wanting to know more answers about Egypt. And it wouldn't have happened if it wouldn't have been for the Egypt stuff coming out as of recently. I do have some more information on Thoth, but I don't know if you want to get down into that crazy rabbit hole or not. But
I'm kind of
that's up to
thinking we
you.
may need a part two because we've almost gone 2 hours already.
Yeah, I'm pretty much done unless you have any other questions. I mean, I pretty much hit everything.
I definitely have a couple of questions. Guys out there, in our beautiful, beautiful chat, and all you newcomers. I'm Gina from Mom's Mystery and Mayhem. You can find me on YouTube and Rumble. Although Rumble, I'm a lot bigger. I grow a lot more. I'm stuck at like 29 on YouTube, and I haven't moved in. I have no idea how many times. And Ash, if you want to let the boys and girls know also where they can find you for anybody that has popped in the chat at a little bit later time.
Yeah, you can find me on Wondercast on Rumble. I also do Lightside Radio. So if you're interested in music and doing music requests and all that, come check me out on Lightside Radio. And of course, my friend who I kind of affiliate myself with, who also does music too, Darkside Radio. That's kind of where I kind of spun a spin off, if you will, off of. But yeah, go check him out as well.
Yep.
The three of us big time are K-Star. K-Star has her movies, so check her out too. But we all kind of are really affiliated, if you will, and we work really closely together. So I kind of feel like I need to bring them up too. But yeah,
absolutely.
So check
I love
me
them
out
all.
on yeah, they're good people.
Yeah, definitely. So I do have a couple of follow-up questions, but people in the chat are asking for a part two. So we're definitely going to have to touch base for a part two. Okay. And maybe on that part, we both kind of can collab on my crystal journey that I'm deeply kind of connected to and wanted to do. So maybe that's why we were meant to connect for some reason. Who knows?
It could be. I mean,
so
honestly.
I want to first out by saying that, yeah, 100%. I do want to thank you for telling your story. I know you said you haven't really gone into depths on some of the stuff that you spoke about, and I could see you and feel you getting a little bit emotional. So I just want to let you know that I appreciate that. The audience, obviously, our friends appreciate that. And it means a lot. You know what I mean? And like you said, you may reach someone in my chat or someone on replay that's like, huh, I don't feel so different. There are others like me. You know what I mean? And slowly we all reconnect. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So the next one I have is your story is definitely deeply personal. How have your close friends and family reacted when you've shared parts of it with them? And how has that influenced you on who you keep in your circle?
I still feel very lonely. Not gonna lie. But I'm finding more people out there that are kind of similar to me. What's funny is the wall of one information is for everyone. It's not just for wonders or whatnot. It's for everyone. But at the same time, wanderers will gravitate towards that information more so than anybody. So if you have a tendency towards, liking the law of one information, you may be a wanderer. If you've had a life that's kind of similar to what I've had, you may be a wanderer. Like for instance, Heather Offord, the one I was talking about earlier, she had a long life of things happening to her similar to me, and allergies and problems, and she had problems with like reading and wanderers just have a problem being here. We're just not vibrationally attuned with this third density. We're meant to be in a higher density, and
we always feel like something's off.
Yeah, we feel like something is not right.
Yeah.
We feel like that this vibration of this planet is it just weighs on us so heavily. And then when you talk to other people, they don't necessarily see eye to eye with you, and you get this stare of, whenever you talk about stuff, and they're just lost.
Yeah.
And it's this is how my life has been, and I gradually find people that I'm more associated with. I'm finding other wonders even, uh, that can kind of understand where I'm coming from in certain aspects. But I'm gonna be out there and honest with you. I have a lot of emotions when it comes to what they turn my ship into. It pisses me off. It quite honestly makes me mad. Like I'm so furious at what they've done, and they've legitimately made a mockery of the creator and the idea of the creator. That's what they've done. And and then for the reptilian beings that are from this story that they have that are legitimately true, to blow it up and then to say, "Oh, we're the gods. We're the gods you're supposed to worship." You know, this is where this stuff began. This is where our turning point for the darkness really started making a really big turning point. Because before that point, it was a mixed bag here. We had, there was good beings here, there was bad beings here, but the bad beings weren't as many. But now
Yep.
it's like primarily bad beings that are here just doing whatever that they want to do for the most part within quarantine rules. Now, again, we'll get into, I mean,
Yep.
I'd like to get into Law of One more fully with you in another episode possibly,
Yeah.
but the quarantine,
Absolutely.
uh, it prevents them from doing a lot of stuff that they would be able to do while here. But at the same time, it also prevents the love and light side from being able to do some of the stuff that they would like to do while here, but they just can't because of the
Yeah.
quarantine. So it's
Yeah.
a
Now
little
I
bit of
have one question that is probably way off topic, and we can touch base on it obviously on the next show. But your RH negative and your O negatives. I
I
am
would
both of
say,
those.
oh, I'm an A negative. So yeah, I know.
I'm
Yeah,
I'm an O negative and I am RH negative.
yep, yep. Yep, I'm an A negative as well. A lot of negative bloodline types have a tendency towards spiritual path of existence more so than anything. Um, Rh negatives have a tendency to have genetic abnormalities more so than others. I know for a fact I have like this weird, like you can see a little ridge right here on my head. You can, if you feel right here, there's
Mhm.
little bitty spines almost running down the back all the way back to the back of my head. But they're weird abnormalities and weird things like that, as well as we have a tendency to do weird things with electronics, things of that nature. I know for a fact that if I get too
I
angry
can't
or too
wear a
upset,
watch.
yeah,
It
yeah,
dies. Every time I put a watch on, it's dead.
yeah, yeah. I've heard that from other people who are Rh negatives. I think there's a connection
Yep.
there between Rh negatives and possible wonders. Now I don't know exactly how that is exactly, but there is something to that.
Maybe we can
Now,
dive into that.
yeah, I would like to dive into that actually. I would be interested in asking questions on that actually. Yeah, but I think there's something
That
to
would
it.
be fun. 100%. Because I definitely feel drawn to certain people. Um, I found my path. Um, and I found it in a really hard, dark time of my life, which seems to be the thing. Um,
It
and I
happens.
feel like my work, I'm always not so much drawn to, but put into a situations with people on hospice. So
Interesting.
people crossing over that other side. And it's kind of crazy because I'll be put in that situation, I'll handle it, and then I'll get like a year off to center myself again, and then I'm put right back in. And no matter where I go, I always get put into. And the last lady I have was right around Easter, right around the same time that we're talking now. when I first met her and I walked in, the way she looked at me and she's like, "You're my guardian angel that was sent for me to the end." And I've never met this woman in my entire life. And the person that reached out to me prior to help with the situation, I was in a situation where I couldn't do it yet. And I was like, can't do that. This was literally almost like a year and a half later where I was brought back to the same person and I had that time. And it's just, it's
That's
crazy that I
synchronicity.
get, yeah. And I get brought back into that situation and people are like, I feel comfortable and safe when you're here, when I know I'm ready to cross. Like some people will be like, I didn't know I was ready. And I walk in and they're like, the weight kind of drops and they're like, I'm ready.
Sounds like you're
And I'm
meant to
like,
help others.
yeah, but in the same sense, when I was trying to figure that all out, I'm like, why am I being drawn to these? You know what I mean? Like it was almost like kind of scary that because death was one of my biggest fears. I've come to peace that I know it's not the end. You know what I mean? So it doesn't scare me as much. And seeing all of that stuff, it's like, I know my family's going to be okay. They may have a hard time, but they're going to get through it just like every other people that I've seen go through it and get through it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I feel like I've found that way. But like you said, there are certain people, as soon as you sent me that picture and I looked at it and I was like, I know this guy. I have seen this
You
guy
probably did.
somewhere. You know what
And
I mean?
honestly, I'm going to be honest with you too. When I first saw you, actually saw you, I actually thought the same thing. I thought to myself, I was like, this person looks familiar. Like I've seen her too before. And I'm going to be
Yeah.
honest with you. I had the same thing happen with you as well. That's strange. That's
Almost like
strange.
we were in the same classroom at some point learning something together. You know what I mean?
Maybe
Like
you may have been.
that's what
You
it
may have
kind of
been.
feels like.
Maybe,
You know what I mean?
maybe you're from a
Yeah.
Pleiadian star system as well.
I wouldn't know, and I don't even know how to get there. But again, that's probably for another show. So we're almost at that 2 hour mark. Chat. I appreciate you guys being here for so long. Again, if you haven't, smash that like button, please. Click that follow button, set your notifications because me and Ash are definitely going to do this again at some point. Make sure you follow Ash at 123 Mad Ash on Rumble. You can follow me here and YouTube if my videos don't get taken down at Mom's Mystery and Mayhem. And you can find me on Twitter right here at SHRTY7081. That's Shorty without the O because I never made 5 feet, guys. Just a wee little one here. So if you guys have any questions out there in our chat that we can answer kind of quickly or give us an idea of where you want to lean to next. But I really like the idea of crystals and maybe bloodlines.
Yes.
Because I know
Yes.
crystals react differently with different people.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. It depends on the person, their vibration, all of it. Yeah, it really does. It really does matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I'm willing
and
to answer any questions anybody has in the chat. If anybody has any questions, I'm willing to answer. I'm here for you guys. I'm here to try to help you guys figure some things out, if at all possible. And if by anything that I've experienced helps you guys figure things out, then by all means.
They want to know, how tall are you, Mr. Ash?
I am about 5'11". Depending on the person who measures me, it could be 6 foot, depending on who measures me. But more often than not, 5'11".
Oh, so we're like a foot apart. I am very short. They call me fun sized here. Why don't you let my chat, and I'm sure your chat knows, your schedule of when and what you stream?
My light side radio streams at 3 p.m. Central Time on Tuesdays. You'll also find my Wondercast on 8 p.m. Central Time on Saturdays. That is when you'll find that show. So
nice. And you can find me here every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And most recently, I've been helping Mr. Sean over here He's in the chat down there, dropping your link for you. On his channel, Third Railify. Our Wednesday is our main show. It's a show about nothing, where it's literally about nothing. We let the chat kind of lead us in a direction, which works great because I feel like people are so burnt out on politics. They're so burnt out on so many things. You know what I mean? That they just throw ideas and it just gets you into a fun rhythm, and it kind of brings everybody closer. You learn things about people that you would never know. And then Tuesday, Thursdays, and Fridays, if you're interested, we do just basically a news and hangout kind of show. We do drop the link in the chat, so if anybody wants to come on, if you have a mic and stuff like that, and obviously if you're respectful, stuff like that, it's a great time. It's a lot of fun. So I'm there basically Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday is my show. So yeah.
So do you run Saturdays and Sundays for your show?
I currently only do Sunday evenings on my Pacific channel. I do sometimes help Sean out on Saturday evenings if his co-host is unavailable. So that happens every once in a while. Like this weekend, his co-host Chris had some prior engagements, so I kind of got tag teamed in, and that was about it. Yeah.
Hey, it works out.
So it's fun. A derailed show. Yeah, it's basically a derailed show with Sean.
A derailed show?
Hence the Third Railify. Yeah. His name is Third Railify for a reason. We go off the rails consistently, and we constantly have to be like, okay, focus, bring it back, and then continue. And he's also one of the ones that, yeah, he's one of the ones, even the chat noticed it last time when we were talking, they were like, it's almost like you guys were separated at birth. You know what I mean? Like, we're so alike. Our birthdays, we're literally like hours apart. Like it's
really?
the craziest thing. It's the craziest thing I've ever experienced. It's insane.
Meant to be.
It's like we've literally known each other forever. Bog, learn when to be appropriate. That's coming from my mom's voice. Flying squirrel, exactly. ADHD and THC. Yeah, I love my edibles. Yep.
Hey.
They're fun.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Nope. They help me relax. They help me feel focused, and they make me ask questions.
Mm-hmm. It calms the mind.
It does. Leah said your souls knew each other. That's why you were drawn together. Probably 100%.
Quite possibly.
Definitely.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of truth to that. I keep hearing that from Law of One, even that's the case a lot of times. Yep.
Yeah, it's just the frequency or vibration. Like, we've never met in person. It's only on screen. You know what I mean? But it's the weirdest thing.
It is, isn't it?
It's intense.
Like similar to what I encountered, what you encountered with me was kind of what I went through as well with you, as well as what went down with John and Heather. That's as strange as that sounds. I have no idea how I'm going to get in contact.
Yeah, it was
But yeah, I have no idea.
It was the weirdest thing. Like I said, I don't know. But it was weird how, like I said, we just kind of came across. I kind of asked you if you wanted to. Then my life got kind of crazy. And then I was like scrolling through my pictures, like to delete things. And I was like, oh, I screenshotted his email address. You know what I mean? And I was like, it's time to do this. And I was like, let's go. And then you sent me the picture and I was like, I swear I know this guy. How would I know this guy? Like, yeah, I've seen him on the stream a couple of times, once or twice. I'm like, but I know this guy from somewhere. You know what I mean? So it's definitely great. So I think I was looking at Cass's name. I think the chat is having a blast. They absolutely love this. So, guys, we're definitely going to do a part 2. It'll
Yes.
definitely be fun. So, I just want to thank all of 55 of you out there. Shut up, Meg. So, they have this thing where they tell me that I sound like Meg Griffin, that I sound like Mila Kunis in certain instances. So now when I say things, they're like, shut up, Meg. So yeah, shut up, Meg. There you go. Um, and here I go with the good old Minnesota goodbye,
Oh yeah,
So
the
again,
old
I want to
Missouri goodbye over here.
Yeah, I'm from Boston. So it literally takes us hours to leave a function. Like we'll be halfway out the door, still talking. Oh, see, now, yeah, you can't unhear it now. I sound like Meg. It's so bad. He said, Colty said, I do hear that. I caught it a couple of times, both them, Megan and Mila Kunis.
I hear the Mila Kunis more than I do the Meg. But yeah, I hear. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah.
It's crazy. And now my kids even say it. I'll be saying something. They're like, shut up, Meg. I'm like, dude, seriously.
Tell Ash to say tornado. Do I say it weird or something? Oh.
Tornado?
Tornado? Do I say tornado weird? I don't know.
My puppy wants to come up and say hello. So here's my
puppy.
She's so pretty. So she was actually my aunt when she got sick. She was on hospice. I actually got her puppies. And 1 year after her death, her anniversary, I had to put the other puppy down. So she's what I have left of my aunt. She's a good girl. She's very anxious though, but I think that helps me because I'm like, you can't be anxious at the same time I'm being anxious because that doesn't work.
Right.
So
it's good to have pets.
All right. So
it really is.
She definitely came into my life when I needed her. You know what I mean? So it was great. Yeah, I'm glad I have her too, Cass. All right, peeps. It's now 11 o'clock over here. I got school in the morning with 2 children and all that fun mom stuff. You know what I mean? So again, I'm going to say, late. Oh, this is nothing. We don't start Sean's show until 10 p.m.
Oh, okay.
And then sometimes we get to talking like Thursday night. And then all of a sudden it's like midnight, 1:30, 2:30. And then all of a sudden at like 2:30, we have Star Pop or K-pop. He'll raid in. Cool Frog will raid in. And our audience will jump from like 20 to like 60. It's like 2:30 in the morning. We're like, let's ride. We got like 5-hour streams going. We're sitting there and at the end we're like, so drained. I'm like, oh my God.
There was one time that I fell asleep during a stream, and I don't know how that happened. And I went to go put wood in the fire. It was during the middle of winter. I went to go put wood in the fire, and I had the hangout session going for my show. And there was about a 12-minute long time period where I was just zonked out in a chair because I went in there and just sat down just to put wood in the fire. That's how it happened. And then by the time I woke up, I go, oh crap! I come in here and I'm running in here. I'm like, and believe it or not, I could not believe it, but people were still in the chat talking and hanging out, and they were like, were like, I wonder when he's gonna be back. Is he gonna be back? I don't know what's going on. I wonder if he went to go take a poop. I mean, there was all these different things in the chat that was just hilarious, and it was all because I just went in there to put wood in the fire, and somehow that heat just put me out. I don't know how it happened. No idea. That's the only time I've ever done that. Only time I can think of that I've ever done that on a stream. But yeah, it happens.
There's been lots of yawns, and sometimes I'm like, and then I'll message Sean, and I'm like, Sean, we got to wrap this up. I'm gonna fall asleep here. You know what I mean?
Right.
Cool Frog is the only one you see. All right. Are you on your computer? Because Or if you want to drop Cool Frog's link in there, then I can do it from my I don't even have my Rumble up because my computer, I only have 4 RAM on my computer and it freaks out when I try to do things. So Cass, if you or Sean, if you're still in there, if you guys want to set that raid for Mr. Cool Frog, I call him Hot Frog because whenever he comes into me and Sean's chat, it likes when I whisper. So I'll say, "Hi, Cool Frog. How are you doing tonight?" And he's like, "Yes." Oh yeah, we call him Hot Frog.
Hot
Hot
Frog.
Frog. Yeah.
I've rated Cool Frog a few times, I think.
Yeah, he's a good dude. Cass, just drop it. We've kind of set our actually it was like a 20-minute goodbye. So drop it. Let's send our people off on their way. And again, look out for part 2 because we're definitely going to do part 2. And there is the raid. Make sure you guys say hello for me. Give them that like. Tell them I sent you. I got to shut down all this equipment after me and Ash say our goodbyes behind the stage. So thank you guys all for coming. We super appreciate it. Again, Ash, I just want to say thank you so much for telling your story. It was amazing. It was eye-opening. It was enjoyable. It was great. And I appreciate it. All right, guys.
You're very welcome.
Thank you so much. Hope you guys have a happy Monday. Drive safe if you're working. I'll catch you next week.
Stop the boat!
We're there.
Where?
Here. A small step for mankind, but a giant step for us.